Eric, let's kind of speed through some of the new stuff and then get to Ninja Turtles, because we have a lot of Ninja Turtles to talk about kind of all at once. We got three things that when we get there, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to keep doing it.
All kind of interconnected.
When we get there, that are all interconnected, and I think we're going to talk about them almost as like one big piece, even though they're not entirely one big piece. So anyway, we're going to talk about the finale of the 2012 series. And I should mention that we have not watched all of that show, and Eric has seen almost none of it.
The first episode.
And now the finale and the 87 crossover.
Yeah.
But we're going to review the 87 crossover, and we're going to review the follow-up to that, which turns out to be the last episode, which just recently came out, so it's cool how timely this ends up being. We did not plan this. And in fact, this was a last-minute ad just a couple of days ago, because I didn't even know. Thanks to Deadpoolzilla for telling me about this when he and I did a video the other day. I had no idea that that was actually the last episode of the show. So I'm glad to know that, and that's part of why we're doing it. And then also we're going to lump Turtles Forever in there and talk about all the crossover stuff, because we watched it again.
Yeah.
So we'll do that here in a little bit. First of all, let's go to a couple of things that we watched together and a couple of things that I watched solo. We are not caught up on anything. The Orville, we have even another episode that's out that we haven't watched yet.
I thought there would be another one on Friday,
we just haven't had
last
time
night
to
we
get
watched
to
the Turtles
thing. We just haven't had a chance to get to it. So I hate not being able to weigh in on that yet, but we'll talk about the episode we did watch. Let's go ahead and do that first. So it's the Orville! It's Cupid's Dagger.
Which we should say, before we started the episode, we looked at that time and we're like, that sounds like the kind of episode you go back to and you're like, oh, it's Cupid's Dagger.
And honestly, I probably still will. I don't like it, but it's the best way it could possibly be handled. Like, I don't like that kind of scenario much of the time. I was surprised by how maturely it was ultimately handled. So we bring back the guy that ends up breaking up the captain and first officer from their marriage in the first place. The guy, or Orville, or whatever his name is, the guy that she sleeps with, the blue guy, and he comes aboard the ship. And he is affecting anybody he touches with this kind of pheromone thing that happens
once a year,
like a few days a year, and it's almost like he doesn't know exactly. It's almost like, this sounds horrible to say, it's almost like a period, like a woman's period, where it happens a certain number of days, but you're not always sure exactly when it's going to begin and when it's going to end.
It's kind of more like ambiguous.
Do they play it that way a little bit?
I can't tell, because he doesn't seem to think it's a problem.
He's not, though.
Is he not?
No,
I thought he kind of was.
I think they're a little bit lazy about how they're writing it. Here's the thing: they try to fix it, or they try to make him sympathetic. I think by making it part of his culture that it is impolite not to sleep with people, and so that way, whenever, even though he's affecting other people, he still feels the need to do that because it's part of his cultural norm. But you'd think he would warn people about it. Like, this is around when this happens. I don't know exactly when it's going to start and finish. And also, if he's they don't talk about him like it's a big deal that he's in the Union, like it's a big mystery, like he's the first Vulcan or something. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, but they don't really talk about it that way. I don't think. I don't know. Am I wrong? Are they really mysterious about it? Maybe I'm not remembering it right. It's been a while since we watched it.
It seems like it would be like if in like the middle of TNG they just discovered Ponfar. Like after Vulcans have already served in Starfleet and stuff like that. Like if they just realized like, oh, Ponfar happens. It seems weird that he's like an accredited archaeologist or whatever, and no one knows that his race has this thing, because it seems really dangerous for them to be just out in normal public.
No, it's very much like Ponfar, and I obviously I had that thought too, and like I think they're trying to do that, and again I think there is kind of I think there's also like a female metaphor there also. Like I was saying before, I'm self-conscious about this now. I brought that up because I think they did it on purpose. So I think that's in the episode.
It's like his time of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm self-conscious about this now. Maybe I shouldn't have brought that up, but I think they did that on purpose. And anyway, so I just feel like that would be something that people would know, or they should know, and he should bring that up. And it just seems like that's the thing that's one of the big things I don't like about it, is that it's too easy of a scenario. Where we're left at the end is interesting. I think we have to wade through a lot of really typical annoying comedy, though. That's what I don't like about it. Is I mean, and some of those bits in the moment are kind of funny, but overall, I don't know.
I like the episode a lot more than you did.
Okay.
I did. Once I forgot what was going on, I was like, okay, so this isn't as dumb and as terrible as I thought it was, because at first I thought it was...
No, it looks like Naked Now, and it's not anything like as bad as Naked Now, but...
I liked it. I like where we leave it. My big thing is there's no discussion about... What we basically have is a culture that seems to be completely sexually free, mixing with us, and we're not that way. And I wish there was some kind of conversation about, like, I didn't realize it was a big deal that, like, I slept with your wife. Like, because that's not a thing in our culture, and they don't really talk about it like that, and I kind of wish there was some exploration of, oh, I didn't realize there were emotional consequences to this.
Yeah, he's really indifferent to it, and if he just talk to Mercer about it, then he could be like, look, I've realized after that this is a big no-no in your culture, but you gotta understand that it would have been a big no-no in my culture not to do that. It is weird that they don't have a conversation about it.
It's very... Because it seems to very much be a society that does not equate emotions with physical acts.
Right.
And there's never a conversation about, like, how that's different than us. Like, that's the Star Trek thing to do is... Oh, well, that's not how
he knows he broke them up,
works.
and he even says, like, once they sleep together again, he's like, I totally understand if you have to get rid of me, on this project. It's weird. In some ways, he's really likable, and in some ways, they're trying too hard to make him likable.
Yeah. Well, and I really like Rob Lowe, who's the guy that plays him.
He's great. I mean, he does a great job in the role. And I could see him eventually becoming one of the really likable recurring characters.
Yeah.
Like, I think he'll keep coming back. Recurring. One of the things that will... I don't know if this makes or breaks this episode, but one of the things that will be interesting moving forward is seeing if it gets tedious dealing with the question of whether or not that was the reason she slept with him in the first place. Like, we could go to a really interesting place with that, or I guess we could just let it linger and eventually organically let them get back together.
My hope here's my hope, is that they do get back together, and we just have a married couple or a couple that just...
And we just do a marriage episode, like season 2 or something?
Maybe they don't get remarried, but or like we get to that eventually.
Yeah.
But like I want them to just be a couple again, because we just don't do that in television. I was like, okay, so if this is the only reason, if this exterior force that she had no control over is the reason they broke up, man, I'd love to see them have an adult conversation and try their relationship again, and maybe they discover...
Well, they'll probably be like, well, not knowing, it's just too awkward. We're not like...
Maybe they discover that they don't work together, and they do, and that's fine. But man, I'd really love to see like very quickly this resolved, and just that like they're just a couple on the ship, and it doesn't have to be all about drama and things like just.
Yeah.
We have a couple and they're running the ship or whatever. Like I think that would be really. Like bold and different, like that would really set you apart from any Star Trek show before that.
That's right.
And stuff like that.
What I really like about it, I guess within just the episode itself, is the idea of, and maybe we could have brought this more to the forefront, but I think it's pretty well explored. The kind of horrifying question of how much we are not just a product of our experiences, but also of our chemicals,
Our biology. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not really brought up enough. You're right.
But that's kind of the inherent human question in the episode, I think.
I'm also really interested to see where the Doctor and Norm Macdonald go.
I don't know why she loses her mind and tries to kill him. That was a big problem.
That was really bad because neither of the other two are affected. Why
does she have that? Why was she affected that way by it?
It was.
And if
like,
that happens, I mean, really, I don't understand how this isn't happening to like a bunch of different people he's coming into contact with, and anybody else in his race that ever comes in contact with other people.
Yeah.
Does he say anything about how like it's unusual for people of his race to intermingle with other races? It's been a couple weeks since we saw this. I don't remember.
I don't think so.
But I don't think that comes up. So anyway, like if it's this dangerous, especially, it would come up.
Yeah.
Then you say, well, Spock didn't tell anybody about Pon farr, but he was supposed to be the only one in Starfleet nobody knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't
he
talk
leaves
about it with outsiders.
And goes and does that somewhere else, kind of.
And it's not like Aurelio says, we don't talk about it with outsiders.
Yeah.
Like, if that was in there, it would make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But then you'd think he would be a lot more careful about touching people. You just wear gloves all the time. Why are you wearing gloves? I'm not talking about. We don't talk about it with outsiders. Like, put on a hazmat suit all the time for, 12 days. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But anyway, pretty contrived scenario. Is my biggest complaint about it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and the episode certainly has flaws, but I still enjoyed it. I still had fun watching it. Once I figured out what was happening, and I feel like I'd probably enjoy it more on second viewing, knowing what was going on the entire time. Because the first half, before you find out what's happening, it really feels like they're throwing the first officer under the bus and making her just unreasonable, and especially with the
I trusted it too much that they couldn't be doing that, considering that it tracks really well when you go all the way back to the first episode, where she feels so bad about sleeping around on him that she makes sure that he gets. You know, when you find that out at the end of the episode, and then to find out that she's confused about why she even did it, and then again that question of are we just a slave to our emotions and to our chemical processes? One thing I will give this episode is I continue to like her more the more I'm finding out about.
Yes,
that.
me too.
So
me too.
That's great. I will really briefly. I don't want to review this. I'm just going to briefly mention that I saw the season finale of Star Trek Discovery. I don't even want to really comment on it too much because I'm so weird about this, about the show. I mean, I've gone on record a lot. I'm not going to say too much. I don't want to repeat myself too much. But it continues to be not what I want, not exactly Star Trek to me, takes itself too seriously, yada, yada, yada. The last 3 episodes, I've been liking it more. I think we're left in a pretty interesting place at the end of the finale, and I will just spoil this real quick. So if you don't want to know about this, skip ahead a bit. But you get to the end of the episode, and we've used the spore drive one too many times. So we do this thing where, in order to we figure out how to detect the Klingons' cloaking device, but we figure out a really small imperfection in the cloak. But the only way we can figure out where a cloaked ship is to fully map all the way around it, and for whatever reason, I guess this kind of makes sense. They decided that the only way to do that is a whole bunch of spore jumps all around one, and they jump, and so the science officer guy that they have linked up to it, or I guess is he our engineer? I guess he's our engineer. That is currently linked up to it and who's been having physical problems because of it. He has to go through 120 jumps, and it's gonna be really bad for his system, right? And Lorca convinces him to do it because if they. And at first I think he's being kind of manipulative, but then it seems like he's actually more sincere, and these characters are starting to be less begrudgingly kind people, and actually liking each other a little bit, and being and making compromises and things. And anyway, he convinces him to do it because he's if we can do this, we will end the war a lot faster, and then we can get back to what we're supposed to be doing, which is exploration, and that's why you're out here in the first place. So they do all these jumps, and it's really bad for his system. And then, somewhat conveniently, when they decide to do just one more jump, that's when he kind of falls apart with the jump, and that was a little bit too easy, I thought. But they're gonna do one more jump to Starbase because it's too risky to warp there. And again, he convinces him to do it. And when they do that last jump, they wind up somewhere where they don't know where they are. And where we're left is we're kind of lost in space. We don't know where we are, and that's kind of a cool place to leave us at the end of the mid-season finale. Where we finally have come out more on top. We've almost we've made it to where we might end the war a lot faster. We have a Klingon prisoner now, which is the female Klingon that was taking advantage of the new guy that we brought on the ship, who I'm liking okay, who's kind of our love interest now for Michael Burnham, and so we're gonna do stuff with her, and hopefully it's not super tedious because I don't care about these Klingons. But and we're talking about honor this episode, and that I don't know if we did that before, but that seemed to come kind of out of nowhere. And anyway, but I need to again. I guess I am reviewing this episode, but I need to watch all this again because I have not been invested, and I feel like I'm probably missing things. Anyway, but where we're left is kind of interesting, and the thing that I'm most latching on to, because I feel like where we're left is more interesting until I see the previews for next time, because I guess this was too much to ask for. I wondered if we might have, at the end of the episode, gotten lost in even another dimension, not just somewhere else out in space. And the reason I'm saying that is because at the beginning of the episode, we figure out that in mapping the spore network, we have found pockets of other dimensions. And this could be their out to make this not Prime. It's possible. I don't know if that's where we're going. A lot of people are talking about this, and a lot of people very early on were like, well, maybe we're not, because it obviously can't be the Prime universe. They're like, well, maybe we're in some other universe. Now, my question continues to be, of course, okay, but why? Like, why are we looking at this?
Well, and anytime the creators ever talk, it does not sound like it sounds like they think they're working perfectly in continuity.
Yeah, and like they made, like they had to have had all this in the can when I would assume when they started. So it's not like
it's not reactionary.
Listen to any fan complaints or backlash or anything. But it is really curious that 9 episodes in, you introduce the interdimensional idea, and maybe that's just so they can do their mirror universe, because I think there's been talk about that. So I don't know. It's wishful thinking, but that would potentially be an out, and you could still later on say that that's what it is. But then you got to do everything you can to give us a good sense of why we've been looking at this universe. But anyway, these characters are more and more starting to feel a little bit more like reasonable human beings. So 9
episodes in, wow.
That's good. I mean, I still don't like this show, but I'm liking it more. So that's good. So let's talk real briefly about Gotham. Again, we're not caught up. We're 2 episodes from where the show is right now. But we watched 5 and 6, and we're underwhelmed, to put it mildly.
It feels like we're back in kind of season 2 territory.
And we haven't watched the next 2, so maybe it gets better.
Yeah, maybe it gets better, but it feels like a 2-episode slump at the very least. The big thing that we said is, first of all, we praised the season so much for having all the stories were kind of interconnected. We're no longer there. The stories are off in their own directions.
And we are back to looking at some scenes where I'm not totally sure why I'm supposed to care.
Bruce Wayne gives up being not Batman.
And we had already seen that, though. I mean, that happened, right?
No, that happens in these 2 episodes.
Does it?
Yeah. Yeah, that he gives up being Batman.
I thought that was in 4.
No.
Is that in 5?
Yeah, it's in 5.
Okay. The Ra's al Ghul thing?
Yeah, the Ra's al Ghul thing is in 5. So we resolve the Ra's al Ghul plot, and he stabs him, and he dies.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, well, if I can kill somebody, I can't do this.
And for some reason, it had to be Bruce Wayne.
It had to be Bruce Wayne. I get that it had to be this nice.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
There's a mythicness to that, whatever.
Yeah, that's your standard MacGuffin thing, or whatever.
Had to be Bruce Wayne, I don't understand.
I don't get that.
But the big thing that we said was, oh no, we're not enjoying any of the storylines.
Especially by that 6th episode.
There's like 4 storylines going on. I don't care about any of them. And they brought Lee back. The number 1 sin of this show.
Yeah, and here's the problem. We've got 2 subplots that are converging together. Why? I mean, I guess if you can count Lee as a dangling subplot from before, but who cares? But I mean, we've got so we've got these 2 characters that we put together coming together with another character, and I don't care about either of these 2 sets of things, right? So Lee, I just need to go away. I mean, I guess
she shouldn't come back.
I guess they think it's fun that they finally got Leslie Tompkins in a Leslie Tompkins place where she's working at a clinic and she's trying to run that, but at the same time,
she's playing a Deadpool character.
She's being kind of forced to work at an underground fight club. We have an ongoing underground fight club in a city like you mentioned that doesn't need.
Yeah, so why is this underground? This seems completely legal in Gotham. Just get one of the licenses from Penguin at the very least.
So. I guess at least what is her name, Baccarin? At least she's having more fun because she gets to play a more like weird, almost like you said, Deadpool version. Like she's sort of playing that character in the middle of playing Lee.
Yeah.
But that's all intermingled now with Riddler, with dumb Riddler trying to get smart again. And I told you that was going to be tedious.
You're right.
It's so tedious.
It's so tedious.
Just keep him frozen,
But so many other things in the first couple episodes were like, oh, it's going to take a while, and then they resolve it
real quick.
Yeah, like I thought.
This looks like it's going to take forever.
Yeah, this looks like it's going to be.
Here's
at least
the thing.
Till the
So
mid-season.
it's him and Solomon Grundy, who of course used to be Butch, and Butch. There's a trend with this. Any subplot involving Butch takes forever to resolve. We just stretch him forever. If Butch is there, it's going to take 12 more episodes than it should have.
They like that actor more than anybody watching that show does.
I don't dislike him.
No.
But we said first season, how is this guy not dead? And they've done some fun things with him. Don't get me wrong. Having now seen what they're doing with Solomon Grundy, I think that might have been a mistake. I don't, and I don't know if I'm being overly critical of this. He's not playing it differently enough. I don't think. I don't think there's anything different in his eyes. He's saying the lines of dialogue that are there, and
which are dumber lines of dialogue.
And he's standing up straight and staring off, or not even staring off into space, just looking at people. But like there should be something different about his eyes. He's giving the same kind of intensity that he gives when he's just playing Butch. You're a different character. It would be almost like, and this isn't the same thing as like I don't think as expecting this show to be like traditional narrative and not a melodrama. He needs to be more over the top. It's a melodrama, right?
Yeah.
But it would be almost like if Illyria was played like Fred.
Yeah.
He's just not giving enough kind of performance.
Well, it's this thing where like sometimes I just kind of like roll with it, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, it's Butch in white makeup. Like you just see the actor.
I thought it was just me.
No, it wasn't as distracting for me as it was with you, but there were definitely a number of scenes where we're like sometimes it feels like he's Solomon Grundy, and then sometimes I'm just looking at Butch in white, in perma white makeup. And I mean, let's be honest, I don't think either of us like Solomon Grundy. Like, he's a boring character.
Well, and it's Gotham. If Solomon Grundy is boring in Gotham, just don't do him. That seems like a character you could be really, really silly and fun and goofy with. He's an undead guy, and the thing is, they're playing him.
We should be stabbing him constantly and doing things like that.
They're playing him right.
Yeah.
Like, he seems like, besides some issues I have with the performance, like, he's Solomon Grundy. Like, they're playing him right.
I don't like Solomon Grundy in the first place, and to build a whole story around him seems like a mistake.
So, you didn't like what they did with Professor Pig?
I don't like what they did with Professor Pig is one of the most perverse, weird
And I say
villains.
he continued.
Yeah. Professor Pig is one of the most perverse, weird villains in Batman. He was intentionally created by Morrison to be like, oh, you think the Joker's weird? Let me show you what a real weird villain is. None of that's here.
Obviously, it's Gotham, so we've had those before.
Well, and I was like, okay, Professor Pig's been adapted a couple times. We usually just make him like a generic serial killer, or in Beware the Batman, he's just kind of like a nursery rhyme themed villain. I was like, this is going to be the show. If there's anything to adapt Professor Pig where he's going to be weird, he's not weird. He's just
for the show. He's not weird. I mean, it is weird to take pig heads and put them on people.
Sure.
How's that not weird?
No, but he's not weird the way Professor Pig is weird. He's not, like, dancing to music while on his pig hooves in the middle of, like, a torture scene. Like,
now, he could get more interesting. We don't know a lot about him yet. I mean, they're keeping him pretty mysterious in his motivations, right?
Do you think he's somebody?
I keep wondering about it. I mean, it seems like... Am I remembering this wrong? Weren't we supposed to think that maybe he was somebody from the GCPD?
Yes,
then it's really obvious now that he's not.
Yes.
Where it's like, no, he's definitely not.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's supposed to be somebody or if he's not supposed to. Like, I'm not sure if it was supposed to be like he might be somebody.
He will not be anyone we've ever seen before.
Okay.
That's my guess.
But he's just kind of generic serial killer guy. Like, and his motif is pigs for some reason. Also, I'm not sure, the entire clue that starts this entire case makes no sense, because at the end of the episode we see him with a farm of pigs. Why do you have to order pigs' heads?
I don't know. Maybe you just got that, they just didn't communicate that to the audience.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. But he's just, like, I'm not saying he's not, like, weird. Like, I could see somebody else watching the show and being like, that's a really weird villain. Knowing what he's supposed to be, knowing what he could be, he's not Professor Pig.
Yeah.
He could kind of be anyone. Especially that there's issues with the GCPD and, like, how they do things. I don't know. I feel like he could have been any generic Batman. He could have been Amygdala. Like, I don't know. He's kind of disappointed.
They don't need a take before they decide to do a character. That's...
Yeah. And I was so excited because I was like, if any show's going to make a really weird Professor Pig, it's going to be Gotham.
I do still... really like the scenario with the with the, what am I trying to say?
The Penguin licenses.
The licenses.
And we do have an interesting development with Bullock.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, I like where we're at with that, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's that's still a dilemma that I kind of like to some degree.
I love the absurdity that he's like, oh, he intentionally cut me not deep enough to kill me, just deep enough so you'd be worried. And I was like, does anyone have that kind of precision with a knife on the neck?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're also, I guess, away from the couple of subplots that were kind of fun and interesting, because we haven't seen, Ivy in them for a while. And
yeah. I think a big mistake that they've made this season is that, like...
They still have too many characters to try to...
Penguin's villains only show up when he needs them for a scene.
Yeah.
We should be doing more with them.
Yeah, and...
Let's leave alone Riddler and Butch and Lee, and let's do something with Mr. Freeze and Ivy and Firefly.
And I don't care, and I am very confused by, and I know you are too, whatever is going on with Penguin and Falcone's daughter.
Oh, man. What is... He's an idiot again.
Yeah.
He was a mastermind.
And you said earlier, you're like, every now and again we just dumb him down.
Yep. So
that people can get the better of him.
So Falcone's daughter's trying to play him so that he will trust her. He continues to be like the smart mastermind guy, sees every single tactic she uses, and goes, yes, I see. And then she walks over and, like, rubs his leg because it hurts sometimes. And next episode, they're best friends, and he feels insanely betrayed by her. And it's this really weird thing where, like, okay, and then they think she's doing something, and she's not. She's opening an orphanage, which I'm still not convinced is not a front, where she hired a bunch of children. But are they trying to dupe us into thinking that she's not actually doing what she said she was going to do? Because she told Jim Gordon that she was going to do exactly what she's doing. I don't buy that Penguin would buy into it, and I feel like they're trying to trick us, and I don't know. I don't like it. It's not
almost
working.
like they don't know if they're talking to us with that stuff sometimes, or if they're just trying to, like, make Penguin look duped and hope that we forget certain things they did with it, and, like, I don't know.
But he gets duped, like, in between episodes.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Like he's like in love with her.
It's almost like I was just wrong when I thought he was catching on to the reason she was making the goulash.
But no, he knows. He knows.
Yeah, I know.
It's really
really strange. And we talk about this all the time, that, like, it feels like there's a couple different sets of writers in the show, but it's really just the same people who seem to have
like they brought back
multiple personalities or bipolar disorder or something, where it's like they brought back the versions of themselves from a couple of seasons ago. I hope it picks up. I hope it has picked up.
Yeah.
And it is, like we should move on, because it is weird to talk about this too much, having not seen the next two episodes.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be pretty brief about Supergirl, because I haven't watched the last two episodes of that, and I think maybe there's even another one now. But I'll just weigh in on how I feel about how the season starts, I guess. And I'll just say that it's consistent and the same show it's always been, which is more than I can say about some of the other CW shows sometimes. Now, I'm not caught up on everything, but up to... I mean, we're into season 3, and it has not jumped the shark yet, and that's exciting to me. Most of the issues I have with it are the same issues I've always had with this show, which I won't even get a whole lot into. There's a lot of things in the way the show carries itself and in some of the initial premise that I just don't really care for, and it continues to have some of those problems. We get speeches that are really overwritten, where I'm like, yeah, I get the point, and we get some preachy stuff and some pandery stuff, and I'm used to that with this show. The thing that I'm having the most difficult time with the status quo so far with the season is just, I mean, first of all, we're not really in a big, like, overarching villain plot status quo yet. I mean, we've introduced Morgan Edge, who's played by the guy from Heroes that I like a lot.
Who plays Nathan Petrelli.
Who plays Nathan Petrelli, which I think is a good choice. We haven't done a whole lot with him yet, but, you know, he's a real bad mass manipulator rich dude, and because we gotta have another one of those, because I guess we got rid of Maxwell Lord, so we gotta have one of those, and I still remain curious about where we're going with Lena Luthor and how exactly her relationship is going to fall apart with Supergirl, because it has to, right? You know, we have that Smallville thing with them, so I like that. I'm not a big fan of her taking over the Catco. She owns it now, and she's running it.
Is Calista Flockhart just gone now?
Hands on. Yeah, so
Because I know she was in and out of the last season, right?
She's still sort of kind of in and out. What they're doing now is occasionally shooting things with her that they can shoot where she lives so she doesn't have to go to Vancouver. And she's working for the president, who is that alien president played by Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And she's and she's playing her press secretary.
Okay.
And they're doing some really obvious, like, our administration is better than the current administration. But it's weird because the same show is also trying to do some really obvious, in-the-moment social commentary about things that are happening right now but would not be happening in this universe because you don't have the same kind of president. That becomes really problematic, and I don't like that we're trying to have our cake and eat it too with some of that stuff. If memory serves, pretty sure I've been watching a lot of things. I'm pretty sure it's this show. There's a whole thing. There's a whole speech somebody has about like trying to keep certain people out with a wall, and I'm like, but there's not a wall.
Yeah, you wouldn't even have that idea.
You wouldn't even have that. Yeah. You know, unless they're just talking about the other side that wants that, but they're not. But it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like in that scene we have the current administration. I watched it one time. That was the impression I had. Anyway, but the thing about the current status quo that so far with the first 3 episodes kind of irritates me is we've got the aftermath of losing Mon-El and Supergirl being really depressed about it and blaming herself and all of that, and we have to go through some really typical stuff that I've been through with superhero things 100,000 times, especially on television, and it's made worse by the fact that I didn't like him and I didn't think they made sense together. So I'm real non-committal. I don't care about that stuff, and it's annoying to wade through. So you have the tip, you know, it seems like she's having to go through all the stages of grief almost episode to episode. So you have the whole thing where she's got to decide that she's no longer going to be her other persona at all, and she tries to quit her job, and she tries to be Supergirl all the time, and we do that whole thing, and that lasts an episode, and then the next episode she's blaming herself, and then at the end it's pretty. It's a pretty easy character arc where she's like, oh wait, no, I saved him. I didn't actually, kill him if he's dead, even though I don't think he's dead. Yada yada. And I don't know. It's just I've been here and done this so many times now. Like, if this is the first superhero show anybody's ever seen, they might appreciate some of that stuff more than I am. But I've been here and done this so much now. But I did like the Martian Manhunter episode quite a bit, and it's just every time they do Martian stuff, I kind of like it. There's an okay. It gets heavy-handed and like really overwritten at the end, but with a speech that Supergirl's sister has. But there's this pretty okay, I think, mirroring set of father-son or father-daughter relationships, where you have where you have Alex, who's Supergirl's sister, who is a lesbian and is marrying Maggie Sawyer, and Maggie Sawyer's father is really traditional and hates all that, and we're doing that whole thing, and he's trying to be okay with it, but he can't bring himself to. And then you have that being mirrored with Martian Manhunter and his father, who he thought was dead in the first place, and who is rejecting him for entirely different reasons, because he thinks that he's just a white Martian pretending to be his son, and it takes him the whole episode to convince him that he actually really is. And it's I'm not going to go real far into it, but it ends up kind of being an interesting mirroring of those relationships. And I was just, anytime we do Martian stuff, I really like it. But it's not terrible. It's just okay. I'm hoping it starts to pick up a little bit. Let's talk some more Ninja Turtles.
All right.
Because it's our Ninja Turtles theme show, Eric.
It's our Ninja Turtles theme show.
So, let's, like I said,
do you want to do this in?
We're going to kind of talk about these things all together. Here's how I think we should start this. So, we watched the 87 crossover, the 22-minute Season 4 87 crossover with the 2012 show. And then we thought it would be fun to go back and rewatch Turtles Forever. Or maybe we did that first. I can't remember.
No, we did it after.
We did Turtles Forever after?
We did Turtles Forever after. Should we talk about those two kind of as companion pieces and then talk about the finale? Yeah,
although, I mean, we're going to talk about the finale with the 87 thing, because it is a follow-up to that. But yes. So, what was going back to Turtles Forever after so long and after so many crossovers and things like?
Well, it was interesting because the things that the 2012 show crossover got exactly right became all the more glaring in this. The voices seemed so much worse going back to Turtles Forever after this.
Of course.
Or after 2012 where they get the voices back, or at least great sound alikes for some of them.
I think they're all the same.
Okay.
I went back and looked, the only thing that as far as I know, that ends up being changed... Now, I don't know about Old Bebop and Rocksteady, but they sound real close, if not exactly the same, with the last episode of the series. Obviously, the guy who played Shredder's not with us anymore, so we had to recast him, but he's pretty good.
Yeah. It's Kevin Michael Richardson.
Yeah. It was a good choice.
But
anyway, but going back to Turtles Forever.
Yeah, going back to Turtles Forever. So that was the biggest, weirdest, oh, these voices are really bad. For the most part. The voices of the original 87.
Well, there were some other things that new crossover improved on from Turtles Forever that made it a little bit tougher to watch. Like, I think they get a little bit closer to the characterizations of the 87
What's interesting is I think that with the first one, and then when we do the finale, they may as well be the Turtles Forever.
Yep.
So, the big thing going back to Turtles...
This is weird trying to talk about all this together.
Yeah, the big thing about going back to Turtles Forever is they are way more disrespectful is the word I'm going to use, but maybe not the right word, to the 87 Turtles than I remembered. Because I remembered going... Now,
that was the big complaint a lot of people had about it.
And
that's the word people used.
And this is me being where I was then in my life, and really, that's me super anti-89. I'm super anti-Ninja... Like, Ninja Turtles cartoon ruined Ninja Turtles because it gave everyone the wrong perception of Ninja Turtles. I'm so tired of people saying, why did the movie change Splinter's origin, and all of that.
Yeah, sure.
That's where I am when Turtles Forever comes out, and I'm like, no, they are stupid. Look how dumb they are. Going back to it, I'm like, oh, they're really dumb.
Well,
they cannot stay on point at all.
We're to a place now with Ninja Turtles like we are with Batman where kind of everything is more embraced again.
Yeah. I've certainly become more...
a little mellow about it.
Yeah, I've become more mellow about it.
You went back and watched some 87 with me. I'm not going to review that today, but I've gone back and watched the first season and a half of that show.
I'm not 18 anymore, you know? So I was like, oh yeah, we are kind of throwing these Turtles under the bus. And it is... 03 is a show made by people that I think legitimately hate that cartoon.
Well, Laird kind of does.
Yeah, Laird hates that cartoon.
He was very involved.
And the mission statement of 03 might as well have been like, screw the 87 cartoon. Like, we're gonna do it right.
Yeah.
And it kind of comes through. That the other thing is, as we talked about,
and Laird hated that idea originally. Like, he didn't want... They talk about it in this book, in the
we will eventually get to
visual history, but at some point in this 9.5-hour show, we will get to. But in the Turtles Forever section, isn't that cool? In the Turtles Forever section, they talk about how Laird wasn't sure about that idea and really didn't like that.
Oh, interesting.
And well, that's not surprising because I mean, like he didn't want to use anything from '87 at all in that show, even if he could have. I don't think he would have. And then the thing, and then he read the script and he thought the script was pretty good. But the thing that really put him over the edge was the fact that they did the comic book Turtles at the end, and that they were able to animate it and make it look so good. And so that satiated him enough. He was okay with it.
So the thing about...
He didn't have to sign off on it.
The big thing going back to this, then versus now, is...
And by the way, they wanted to do it for a long time and they weren't allowed to. And they finally... It doesn't explain why, but finally they were allowed to.
All of a sudden, like, some kind of legal something moved. And
it doesn't even say that it's legal. It's just we couldn't and now we can. There's a lot of that in this book where if they're not... If the guy who's writing this isn't sure how something happened and he can't find out, he just says, and then it was like this. Like, he doesn't try to make up anything. He's not speculating. He's just like...
That's good.
Something, now we have the rights, so...
But they... going back to this... It feels,
I'm not gonna have any reason to even review this when we get to read a book.
It feels so much more quaint.
Yeah.
That was the big thing we both had when we were watching. Was like, well, and I was there when it first aired. You found it a little bit later, but I was there when it first aired.
I didn't know about it when it first
aired. And
it
felt so mind blowing. Like, oh my god, we're doing this. Like, this is crazy. We're doing multidimensional. We're bringing the comic book Turtles. Everything's doing this now, and it's lost its specialness. And so the way
it's still fun, but that novelty, it's like Avengers. The novelty wears off.
The only way I can really still appreciate this on that level is to remember what it felt like. To do my best to remember what it felt like. Forget that everyone is doing this and it's boring and you don't like it anymore.
You didn't think it was even possible.
Yeah, it was just... And no one else was doing this. Like
It's so fanfic in a good way.
Yeah. It's before Brave and the Bold is doing some of this stuff, and like,
sure.
We weren't doing this. We weren't doing multi-dimension. We weren't crossing over different versions of things. We weren't doing this all the time like we are now, and so it felt so. Like if this was made today, I would be like, yeah, I guess that's cool. Like that's great that you did that. And getting to see the Eastman Laird turtles was just like I never thought I'd see that.
Yeah. And they look great. It totally works.
The Shredder joke is weird, but
though going back and reading the first issue again, I see why they made that joke. Because it really is just to hit him with somebody falls over. Like that is what happens.
I mean.
And then the 87 turtles just keep on stuff at him.
But I wanted when he fell there to be explosion.
Yeah.
I really wish when he fell there was an explosion.
I guess he just didn't activate his thermite bomb.
Yeah, I really wish there was an explosion.
That's really funny. That's a good point. And with no explanation. It's just, if you read it, you know why he explains. Yeah. He just explodes.
But, because it's gritty. No, I liked it. It's a great send-off to that series.
I'm not going to say too much about it. I've done a pretty lengthy rewind on it, but
it was really fun.
It was fun to go back.
It was fun to go back to.
It was really interesting going back and looking at it, comparing it to these new things that we've got.
Because especially the first crossover, there's a lot of compare and contrast. Like these things are better, these things are better on both sides. Both of them have pros and cons.
What's kind of fun about Turtles Forever is that there's such a stark contrast between them, where they're almost two entirely different things, and they kind of get a little bit into what is similar about them, but it's mostly just superficial, kind of archetypal stuff, and it's kind of fun, like making fun of the 87 premise, or not even making fun of it so much as just like having the characters in 03 scratching their heads at things like mutates and all this mutagen.
Who are you talking to?
And that too, yeah, but like the fourth wall breaking is making fun of that stuff was funny, and we do that with the new stuff too. But I really appreciated. Like driving the point home that 87 is all about the mutates, and 03 is not about that. It's much more street. Like even when you get into space, it's much more grounded.
Yeah.
Which is a weird way to put it, but it kind of is.
Yeah. At the very least, it takes it more seriously.
So at first, when we got into the 2012 cry, the first one, I found myself going, well, it's weird because they're so much closer together in tone than the 03 version and the 87 version, and that's not to say that they're real close together in tone, just so much more so. 2012, would you even call it a midpoint? Or is it even a little bit farther over to 87 than 03?
I haven't seen enough of it to really...
Maybe we haven't seen enough of it, because they do, from what little I've watched and things I've read about it, they go to some dark places in that show. And it seems like they've killed Splinter. We are just going to spoil this whole thing, but because it's the last episode of the show.
Seems to die. We don't know.
They don't find some kind of reason some kind of way to bring him back or anything. I mean, like, it's really cool that they allow it to go that far. But it is, very like, at least a lot of what I've watched is very messagey for kids. It's interesting that last episode doesn't do that at all. It's just a big romp. At first, it seems like there's going to be kind of a character arc for the Turtles about the fact that there's not anything for them to fight anymore, but then...
And then that just never pans out. We never touch back on that.
But after, especially that last one, watching the first 2012 crossover a couple times, and then watching that last one, I kind of felt like there was a little bit more to compare and contrast than I had given it credit for in the first place.
But is there, because they feel like such a regression in that second one?
Well, yes, that's true, but I just mean idea-wise.
Okay.
Where it's sort of like... Okay, so, in Turtles Forever, neither one of them are looking at their prototypes, and then they have to go to the, Turtle Prime and find the real prototypes. I feel like what they're looking at, even though they don't realize it, in the 2012-87 crossover, is the 87 Turtles are their prototypes. We're going all the way back to the beginning of what we were doing with Turtles on film, and we're really actually exploring, at least a little bit, where we were and where we've gotten to now, and not exactly everything in between like Turtles Forever kind of tried to do, but it's just sort of... It's like this. It's like if Brave and the Bold met 60s Batman.
And did not mention animated series.
Because 03 is not the show you thought you were watching when you were watching 87. 03 is the show, if you were an adult, you wish you had when you read those comics.
Mm.
This show is like Brave and the Bold. It's the show you thought you were watching when you watched the 87 show as a kid.
Mm.
So it's What If They Met?
Mm-hmm. My two biggest problems with the first crossover episode.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that because
Yeah.
it is bizarre in some places.
The first one is I think the animation looks terrible when we're at 87.
It looks like Flash internet
It
animation.
looks like Flash animation. It looks better in the
more than better.
It's
almost perfect. Yeah. And the coloration gets great.
But that looks really bad. And then when they come over, they look great, and that's what that show should have looked like. Like we talked
With
about
tweaks.
This. Yeah. You change the eyes a little bit. You know, make them.
Because Eric and I neither of us care for
the designs of
the newer show. Yeah.
But what the 87 Turtles look like when they come
They look
over?
okay in stuffed animal form.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah, but Dinah's got that gap.
Okay.
Ooh, boy,
Oh no, I don't like that. But just design wise, I don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the Build-A-Bear Michelangelo, and he looks way cooler than these other two. But I like him.
But my other problem getting the plot stuff is we go to Turtle Prime. We call it Turtle Prime. Okay, so I got two problems with that. First one is...
I mean, they call it the primary universe, but it's essentially Turtle Prime.
Don't do that. Don't do that and not have the 87 Turtles remember. Like,
yeah.
Wouldn't that be a fun joke? To go back to there and not go back to Turtle Forever seems real intentional.
Yeah, it's weird because Turtles Forever... See, this is even worse as we're talking about it, because Turtles Forever got everything in one multiverse. This is a second multiverse. There's no way around it. It's not the same thing. Mm. And that's really unfortunate because you stole that idea and you did it again.
Yep. And you did it worse. Because when we go to Turtles Prime, it makes no sense. Because they tried to make it like a comic book page, but the comic turtles exist like comic panels where they're moving like this, but then the Turtles from 87 and the Turtles from...
They're animated the way they were in their respective shows.
And it's like the panel itself is a TV, and on top of that TV is the comic book Turtles moving, and they don't even look like they're in the same place.
When they go into each other's universes, they change designs. They change, like matter. Like they go from...
They go from 2D to 3D.
If you went from 3D to 2D, when you go there, you should be in one dimension, but we didn't do it that way?
No, and that would have been an interesting different take, is we're going to do essentially a motion comic, and you're going to see these characters drawn in the Eastman Laird style, and they're also going to be motion comic.
What they would have looked like.
It seems so lazy.
Yeah,
it seemed like they had no take on doing the Prime stuff, and there's no reason to do it. Yeah. Especially because it makes it feel like you're intentionally leaving out 03. Like, going back there and doing it again, it's like... Oh, well, you ripped that off from them and you're not even going to mention them? Like, at least have the 87 Turtles be like, yeah, we did this before.
Yeah.
Like, have them remember something.
And I can't deal with the idea, and we continue this, of course, into that last episode, I cannot deal with the idea that Dimension X is the same Dimension X in every iteration of the Turtles. Because the Krang just can't be the same species that Krang is. They don't even look the same, but they talk about each other.
I'm telling
you,
all they need is a line that just says there are 2 Dimension X's. There's a 2D Dimension X and a 3D Dimension X, and that fixes it if he was cast into 2D Dimension X. But they don't. They treat it like it's one place, and like it all makes sense.
But it's still... one line wouldn't have fixed it. Because they act like Gilbert Godfrey Krang, who's hilarious, by the way.
He's amazing. He's great.
I have not seen in other episodes, but I'm looking forward to going back through the show and seeing that. Gilbert Godfrey Krang... words you never thought you'd put together, is like, we banished you, so there's not like another dimension. He banished, like he's part of the group that banished Krang. The thing is, they're trying to make it canonical. They're just not thinking fourth dimensionally, okay? They make... It's kind of cool that they find a way to not just in a generic multiverse way say these things take place in the same universe. It is that, but they're saying, okay, we're going to give you a story explanation in one show for something that we never really explained that much in the first show, which is kind of a cool idea, because at the beginning of 87, he is banished to Earth from Dimension X. And in this, they act like the reason they picked that dimension was that it sucks to be two-dimensional. And I think that's really funny, and I like that idea. Except it just doesn't make any sense.
Because
it just doesn't work.
We've gone to Dimension X, and we know...
And the Krang were a collective consciousness. I don't understand how all that goes together.
Well, but we also have Gilbert Gottfried Krang, and I don't know how...
Right, so I don't know how that fits into that, but I still don't know how this singular Krang...
But also...
work anyway.
But also, we see in the finale, they have their own Stone Soldiers. They look completely different.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be the same.
It just can't be the same.
It can't be the same.
But we're already inconsistent about the chemical makeup of the characters in the 122-minute episode. So that's weird. So obviously there's fun to be had there.
Comparing and contrasting, I think the 2012 crossover is significantly weaker than Forever and looks bad compared to it because it's taking so much from it.
You're just talking about the 22-minute thing.
Just the 22-minute
weird
thing.
to compare them because one's a movie thing.
It kind of felt like I was like, oh yeah, this is fine.
You know what Sarah's big complaint about it was? Because she watched it with me and she liked it. But Sarah's big complaint was the 87 Turtles didn't eat pizza in every scene.
Yeah.
She's like, why do they have to eat pizza in every scene? And then that gets even worse in that last episode.
Yeah. So the initial crossover 2012, I thought was fine. Like, I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't Turtles Forever. Like, it was okay. But then when we get to the finale...
Then that's a horse of a different color.
It's great.
It's great.
It's
a lot of
fun.
And it's weird. These are all weird to compare to Turtles Forever. Both of these are weird to compare to Turtles Forever.
I mean, that's a whole different beast, I think.
I think in some ways it's comparable to Turtles Forever. Not in story, sophistication, and cleverness or anything, but just, I mean, cleverness, sure, but not in, like, exactly the way we put things together, but just in writing, and it's a lot of fun. I laughed constantly.
We
it's
both
so
did.
much
It was
fun.
really fun.
Yeah.
Bebop and Rocksteady are a delight.
They're Bebop.
The
2012 version.
Bebop and Rocksteady are a delight. They're
He is
so much
the
fun.
funniest Russian stereotype. One of the funniest I've ever
He's
seen.
the Rhino!
He's the Rhino! That whole thing about...
Mother?
Krang, you look like...
Oh!
You look like a pregnant woman with a brain in your belt.
No. You look like a pregnant man who has a brain for a belt.
We laughed for 3 straight minutes. I almost paused it.
Yeah, no, we could not stop laughing.
Oh my god. Everything that came out of his mouth, 90% of what came out of his mouth
But the setup for that is also great because Krang and Shredder are the Krang and Shredder from the A7 universe, and they just keep making fun of them and calling them names, and he's
Even
like...
though they're smarter than them?
Yeah, and at one point, Rocksteady just is done with it. It's just like, can you stop with the name calling? How would you like it if I called you, if I said that you looked like pregnant man with brain for belt? Doesn't that make you feel bad? Like, it was hilarious.
And I think that was a really fun idea that they're actually competent for the 87 universe, but they're dumb for this one. And the idea of... I wish we'd taken this farther. I like the idea of the 87 Turtles having to learn what real danger and real fear is. We just don't go far enough with it.
No, the biggest problem with this crossover is that after a certain bit, because like, we try to teach the 87 Turtles how to fight, and again, I didn't feel like that in the 22-minute one. It feels like they are the Turtles Forever versions of those turtles.
Yeah.
But after that, and there's some good gags there, it feels like they don't need to be there. It feels like they're entirely superfluous.
And I really enjoyed 87 Shredder and Krang, but weirdly, I almost would have been better off with just them coming over and dealing with these turtles, you know? Do you think that it's a fair complaint that it's not a good enough send-off for... And again, you haven't watched the whole show.
I haven't seen the whole show. I can't begin... Yes, in that we start with a character place of, we beat everything. What do we do now? We're bored.
Yeah.
And we do not give that a conclusion. I think
the show ends because there's no more show to be had?
I think the closing scenes, yes. I think it's totally fair to be angry that it ends in 87. I think it's totally fair that they don't get a real character wrap-up. But as the premise, as for most of it, without seeing the show, I don't think so. It seems like we get a lot of their supporting cast in here. We hit kind of a bunch of beats. Yeah. The only thing we don't get is their Shredder, who I assume is dead.
Yeah, he is. I think.
But I
haven't watched a lot of it either. But
they seem very murdery, don't they?
I do have to mention, I loved the intro to that show. For their season 4 intro or season 5 intros.
The one for the first crossover was weird, and we didn't really like it because it interrupts itself and it explains what it is.
And then it has the entirety of the old intro. with the animations and stuff. But the song is all there.
But the one for this finale was great. It's all
noirish and
it might be my favorite Turtles intro I've seen. Like visually, it's really cool.
It's up there. I mean, I can't never beat the original, but it's oh boy, it's cool.
But yeah, I
was really taken in by that.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I loved Bebop. Like that is the reason I want to go watch this show. Is I'm like, oh, that's a really fun Bebop and Rocksteady, and it's interesting.
A lot of things that are kind of that are obviously for the adults in the audience without going too far.
The Mother Russia joke can't play at all into a kid.
I couldn't even believe that was there.
That was hilarious. Hilarious.
They put some envelopes in that.
No. The finale of this show made me want to go watch this show.
That's great.
Because it's not as silly as I thought it was. Yeah. Or at the very least, it gets not as silly as I thought it was. It looks like maybe it really grows and becomes a little bit more serious.
Oh yeah.
It becomes.
It definitely does.
It becomes the show that I always wanted 87 to be. It's the show that the 87 toys are, kind of.
I've watched. It's been a long time, but I've watched up through, like the beginning of season 2, or maybe it is the end of 2. I can't remember, but their version of defeating the Shredder and having the big kind of city war thing. It's really good. And
no, I'm genuinely interested in watching the show now.
It got pretty heavy for that show, and they do some really fun. Like when it gets a little darker, they do some really cool silhouette work that makes it look more like the comics, and it's crazy how versatile it is.
Yeah, I'm really interested because it's not exactly the show I thought it was.
Yeah.
And especially when they're comparing the Trassing to the 80s Turtles, and it's like, you guys don't use your weapons? I'm like, oh, these Turtles do actually use their weapons and they fight and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And apparently they murder everyone, so that's exciting.
That is on DVD right now, in case you want to watch it in
film,
a full-blown film sort of way, because there's no breaks in it. It doesn't have credits unless the credits are after that music video that we just stopped because
it was just the worst
disturbing
thing ever.
And I didn't want to listen to that anymore. I didn't like that music, but there is this really creepy ice cream cat creature that is just freaking me out.
What is that?
And
it's so terrifying.
Nightmares about that thing.
I was just like, yeah, it's an ice cream cat.
Ice cream cat. Tell your friends.
Also, I'd be super remiss without mentioning. I've always thought the 87 Foot Clan looks awesome. They look just as awesome, if not better, in 3D. And they're hunched over like the toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
It was great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to try that series.
That's going to be it today for Primetime Crisis. Thanks a bunch for watching. Next time, I'm going to try to get back to... I'm going to try to get back to Teen Wolf. People have been asking about that. Sorry I didn't get to it this week. I'm going to try to do that. And I may try to catch up on one or two other superhero shows. We're definitely going to catch up on Orville. And I don't know if we'll get back to Gotham quite yet, but we might. Anyway, so thanks a lot for watching, folks, if you're just watching this section. And in the meantime, we're going to get back to the Mega Show.